I've noticed something really interesting about how avoidants react to secure people. They stop running, and in many cases, they stay. But why does this happen? What is it that secure people are doing that makes avoidants want to stay as opposed to pull away? Well, I think I've cracked it, and it all boils down to this concept that I'm not even sure secure people are aware that they're doing. A few weeks ago, I filmed this video. And in it, I introduced this idea of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are the parts of our brain that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else doing it. That's why we smile when someone else's smile, or while we feel intense when someone else is feeling intense. Look, let me give you a better example. Think about the last time you watched a really emotional movie in a theater. You weren't the one in danger, you weren't falling in love or experiencing heartbreak, but you felt those emotions as if you were. Maybe your heart raced during an intense chase scene, or you teared up when a character said goodbye. That is mirror neurons at work. They make us feel connected to experiences that we see, even if they're not our own. In relationships, this means that our emotions and experiences that we're projecting can have an impact on the people around us, whether they realize it or not. In that video, I interviewed this success story from our community named Tita, and I make the argument that she might have accidentally stumbled across a way to make an avoidant obsess about you. And the one thing that really struck me when I was interviewing her was she kept talking about this idea of energy.
I was just like, I give up. And it was like the moment my energy shifted and I like went off the grid of that relationship, that was when he came, like he snapped back like a rubber band.
Now, for those of you who are really familiar with my personality, you'll notice I'm really skeptical of things that I can't really point at or prove or have a logical explanation for. Which I guess just means I don't have a lot of blind faith in things. The concept of energy is no different. I'm not sure we have these specific auras attached to us that just emit when we walk by someone. And I certainly don't think secure people are doing something with this aura to make avoidance stop running. I think there's a better explanation, one that is grounded in psychology. It's possible that what Tita is describing as an energy shift is really the effect of mirror neurons. When she let go, stopped chasing, and focused on her own life, she wasn't radiating some magical energy. Instead, she started modeling the kind of secure behavior that her avoidant partner subconsciously mirrored. I mean, think about it. If you're constantly radiating anxiety or neediness, an avoidant is going to pick up on that and reflect it back with more distance or detachment. But if you shift to a calm, secure state, the mirror neurons might start responding in kind. They stop feeling the pressure to run and start feeling a sense of safety. And if you want to take things a step further, you could argue that because of mirror neurons, a concept like secure contagion can even exist. All right, very brief overview of how attachment styles work. There are really only two types of attachment categories. You have the secure ones and insecure ones. With the secure attachment category, well, guess what? There's only really one attachment style, the secure one. The insecure attachment category has three: the anxious, the dismissive avoidant, and the disorganized or fearful avoidant. Again, for avid channel watchers, this is nothing new. We've talked about this all the time. Now, the mistake most people make is they think that you are your attachment style forever. An anxious can never change, an avoidant can never change, a fearful can never change, but that's simply not true. Attachment styles aren't static, they're dynamic. And the way they interact with each other can cause someone's core attachment style to shift. For example, an anxious person who enters a relationship with a securely attached partner might over time feel calmer and more secure themselves. They're essentially being taught over time how to regulate their emotions in a proper way. On the other hand, the same anxious person might become even more insecure when paired with an avoidant. Why? Well, because an avoidant person's tendency to pull away essentially reiterates the anxious person's greatest fear, a fear of abandonment. And this essentially creates this feedback loop of anxiety and distance. The same goes for avoidance. A dismissive avoidant paired with someone secure might start to feel less threatened by intimacy, slowly shifting towards security. But if paired with someone anxious who constantly seeks reassurance, they might retreat further into avoidance to protect their independence. Again, this is nothing new to avid watchers of this channel. But I want to find out why. Because why is the interesting question. And I think it all boils down to two components: mirror neurons and what I'm calling secure contagion. Now, mirror neurons, as I've explained, are the parts of our brain that mirror the actions and emotions of those around us. If you project calmness, confidence, and security, those emotions can unconsciously influence the other person's state of mind. It's like giving them a blueprint for how to behave and feel. But it goes deeper than that. Secure contagion is about the ripple effect of emotional regulation. When you maintain calmness and self-assurance, you're not just influencing them on a subconscious level, you're setting the emotional climate of the relationship. Avoidants, despite their tendency to flee, are drawn to secure environments. Basically, they want a stable, non-pressure filled environment to be in. Now, here's the thing. Anxious energy amplifies stress in avoidance, and it drives them to pull away. But secure energy has the opposite effect. It creates a sense of safety, and for avoidance, safety is the one thing they're unknowingly craving. So the real secret, it's not about what you say or do to an avoidant. It's about the secure behaviors you model in the relationship and how their mirror neurons subconsciously pick up on and reflect those behaviors. When you live securely, your calmness and self-assurance essentially creates this type of ripple effect. Avoidants, despite their tendency to pull away, begin to mirror that security, even if they don't realize it. This isn't about saying the perfect thing or trying to convince them to stay. It's about creating an environment where they feel safe enough to stop running. Now, does this work all the time? Does this mean that all you have to do to get an avoidant to stop running from you is to project security? Well, no. And quite frankly, I think that's a dangerous precedent for me to come on here and set. Here's the thing. While being secure, modeling secure behavior, the whole secure contagion, the mirror neuron, all of that is good, it's not going to be a magic fix. Relationships are complex, and so are attachment styles. Avoidants don't run simply because they're reacting to insecurity. They run because of deeply ingrained fears and coping mechanisms that often stem from childhood experiences. This means that while your behavior can influence them, it's not a guarantee. You're dealing with someone who has a pattern of self-protection, and no amount of projected security will override their need to feel ready or willing to engage. In fact, relying solely on this strategy can lead to an unhealthy dynamic as well, where you take the blame for everything wrong with the relationship when it's really not your fault. True connection requires both people to do the work, both individually and together. So if you clicked on this video looking for a surefire way that you can make your avoidant stay in a relationship with you, I'd like to encourage you to alter your paradigm. Instead of asking, how can I stop them from running? Ask yourself, am I showing up as the most secure version of myself, whether they stay or not? Because here's the truth. Modeling secure behavior is as much about protecting your own well-being as it is about influencing theirs. I don't know if you've noticed this lately, but the core messaging of the videos that I'm putting up on this YouTube channel have changed quite a bit. When I posted my first video to this YouTube channel back in 2015, the messaging was all about getting an ex back. Here's what works to get them back into your life. Now, around 2020, the message started to shift a little bit. I started diving into attachment theory, learning more about avoidance, but always with a focus still on exes. And then in 2024, I decided to shift my focus on helping people understand avoidance in general, how secure behavior impacts your life. Because the truth is that if you want an avoidant to stop running and stay in a relationship with you, you're actually playing a pretty dangerous game. Relationships with avoidants often look like this. You give them love, they feel overwhelmed and run. You pull back and ignore them, they miss you and crave your love. You give them love, and guess what? The cycle repeats. Now, on the surface, this might seem manageable. But each time you walk through that cycle, a little bit of you dies. And here's the truth. It's not just emotionally draining, it's destabilizing. This isn't about frustration or heartbreak. It's about how this pattern can literally drive you insane. Even the most secure individual will be driven insane if they're subjected to this pattern time and time again. That means the secure person will all of a sudden become insecure. Why? Well, because mirror neurons work both ways. Just as your calm and secure behavior can influence an avoidant to feel safe, their anxious or avoidant behaviors or tendencies can influence you. When you're constantly faced with their emotional distance, withdrawal, or push-pull behavior, your brain begins to mirror their instability. Over time, their insecurity begins to shift your emotional state. This is why secure people can even find themselves overreacting, becoming anxious, becoming insecure if they're in relationships with these type of insecure individuals. It's not because you're inherently insecure. It's because you've been caught in a cycle that erodes your sense of stability. I've watched hundreds, I'm not kidding you, hundreds of my clients walk this cycle. At a certain point, it's just not healthy to condone exposing people to a cycle that you know inherently leads in the same place over and over again. And that's why I think messaging online about breakups and relationships needs to change. Now, I'm not saying you should stop trying to make the avoidant running. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to save your relationship or get your ex back. What I am saying is this. Making a big decision like that, whether it's fighting to win them back or choosing to stay away or walk away, well, you shouldn't make that decision when you're in the thick of instability. When you're caught in this cycle, it's like having tunnel vision. The emotional roller coaster clouds your judgment, making it almost impossible to see the bigger picture clearly. That's why I believe it's so important to get yourself more stable first, yourself more secure first. Because when you're in a clearer headspace, when you've regained your footing, you'll be able to make decisions that aren't based in panic, fear, or desperation. You're just going to make the decision that you feel is best for you in that moment. Now, you want to hear the most ironic part of this whole thing? Having this mindset shift kind of creates a counter cycle. You focus on your own stability, they notice the change and feel intrigued. You stop chasing them, they feel the absence of your attention and start leaning in. You prioritize your own well-being, they feel safer and more drawn to your secure energy. And instead of staying in a cycle that drains you of energy, you enter into one that builds you up. Because here's the thing. When you stop trying to fix or chase them, you're no longer feeding their fears of closeness. You're showing them what it looks like to be secure and self-sufficient. Mirror neurons. And while this doesn't guarantee that they're going to come running back and everything will be happily ever after, what it does guarantee is that you won't lose yourself in the process. But of course, that doesn't mean your journey with the avoidant is over. Not by a long shot. Eventually, the positive cycle and the negative cycle will collide. Now, here's what I mean. Once you've built the secure positive cycle for yourself, you'll face a crossroads, a moment where the negative cycle tries to pull you back in. It's like a temptation, and I've seen it happen time and time again with my clients. They start to make progress, they feel stronger, more secure, and more grounded, but then the avoidant re-engages or something triggers an old fear, and suddenly the temptation to fall back into that old cycle feels overwhelming. It might start small, a need for reassurance, a moment of doubt, or a flicker of hope that this time things will be different. But before they know it, they're back in the cycle, giving love, getting overwhelmed, pulling back, and repeating the same painful dance. This is why the work doesn't stop at creating a positive cycle. The real challenge is staying in the positive cycle. Because believe me, that temptation will come. There will be a pull to get drawn back into the negativity and the chaos. And the more you fall back into that negativity and chaos, the harder it is to climb out of the hole and begin a new positive cycle. And here's where things get really weird. The more you fall into their negative cycle, the more the avoidant begins to get incentivized to continue tempting you. And ultimately, they're incentivized that their cycle is the correct one to be in, and thus they're less likely to change. It's saying no to the temptation that actually works, or better yet, walking away when you realize they're not valuing you for who you are. Now, earlier in this video, I mentioned an interview I did with a success story about how I believe she used mirror neurons to attract every avoidant in her life back. What I didn't mention about her is what she did when they came back.
I can't keep them there. You know, a relationship like is a two-way street. So I just gotta let them go. And
she let them go. She didn't take any of them back. And what's funny about this is that this really secure woman did 3 things that she felt was crucial to her success. And I talk about them in this video right here. And I think you're going to be impressed.